So some of you know that our screwed up government, fake of a government, passed something called Juneteenth last week. And Juneteenth is about, here's an example of what Juneteenth is about. And I gave this yesterday at church. There were several people who had a 12 o'clock flight from Texas to Alabama. But they thought it was 1 o'clock departure time. So several people showed up ready to take a flight at 1 o'clock, but it was 12 o'clock. And so these people sitting in the airport waiting for a few people, right? Few, 5, sitting in the airport waiting for a 1 o'clock flight that left at 12 o'clock. And so finally, the workers asked those people, why are you here? They're like, we're here for a 1 o'clock flight. She looked at the tickets and she said to them, oh no, your flight was at 12, it's gone. 2 years later, right? And the people are like, what? We thought it was at 1 o'clock. And so a couple hours later, they realized it was 12 o'clock. And instead of celebrating the time that the flight really left, they celebrated 1 o'clock and turned it into a holiday because a few people didn't know it was 12 o'clock. That's what Juneteenth is all about. In a little one city in Texas, a few black people did not know because they didn't have an Obama phone. They didn't know that slavery had ended, I believe, 2 years prior. And so they found out 2 years later, slavery is over. What? What am I going to do? Slavery is over? Why have I been living this way? Slavery ended 2 years ago. How can I get over this? The few people in Texas. And they said, oh, I know how I can get over this trauma and become liberated. Let's make it a holiday. Let's not celebrate the day slavery ended 2 years ago. Let's celebrate the day a handful of people found out in Texas. And that's how so-called Juneteenth came about. And the people are acting as though it's a real holiday. Even though slavery had ended 2 years prior, and a handful of people in a Texas town didn't know about it. And so now taxpayers have to pay for a holiday in America of USA. Isn't that amazing? And I said that it's not going to change anything. The violence, black on black violence will continue. And it's just another opportunity for more black on black violence. Black on white violence will continue. Hopefully white people don't show up to these phony celebrations, but the black on white violence will continue because the blacks are going into the suburbs now. Matter of fact, the government are building low-income homes in the suburbs, so the black on white violence will continue. This is from Breitbart. Juneteenth celebrations in Oakland, California, Aurora, Colorado, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Clover, South Carolina, and Flint, Michigan were marred by shootings and death. Juneteenth were marred. Is it marred? marked by shooting and death. Black people celebrated Juneteenth by killing one another. That's what they do when they get together, because they have no love. They have been turned away from their fathers. The anger that you see in the black children is that of the black mother. It starts in the homes. In the homes, folks. Turn away from the father toward the mother and catching pure hell. The anger of the children that are killing one another, robbing and raping and stealing and looting and rioting, killing white people, blaming white people for their issues, is the anger of the mother. It's the evil. We must return to the fathers. Other way is not going to work. There's nothing you can do, zero, to make it work. God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, woman over children. Nothing going to work but that. Everything else is a pretense. Satan pretended to be God, operating through fallen state people. Breitbart is reporting that Aurora Juneteenth celebration was brought to a violent end when multiple shooters unleashed 114 rounds on attendees at an event. 114 rounds, black on black violence. And watch how the media and the race hustlers, politicians, race hustlers, politicians and others, the preachers, would blame this on white supremacy, white people. There's no accountability for blacks today. And they don't, not all, but most, and they don't seem to want to take it for themselves. It's about the anger, folks. And when you have anger, you love no one. It's impossible for any human being with anger to have love. And this brainwashing of black folks by black people and liberal whites have been going on for as long as I can remember, since the Civil Rights Movement, nearly 70 years. This brainwashing, blaming the white man, blaming racism, blaming this and that. It just encouraged the hate, because the blacks are already in a fallen state when they walk out of their doors. It's a spiritual battle. No such thing, nor has this ever been, racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism, deadbeatism, white supremacism, anti-Semitism, or critical race theoryism. No isms. Truly, our battle is a spiritual battle. Police in Long Branch, New Jersey, struggle to control wild crowds as Juneteenth celebration turned violent. Watch this.
Yep.
These are liberated people. Juneteenth liberated them. I don't understand how anyone can ignore what they see happening and call it something else. Call those things be not as though they were. This has nothing to do with white people, nothing to do with white supremacy, nothing to do with slavery, nothing to do with police brutality, this crap they're calling it. Nothing to do with whatever, but everything to do with the lack of love, the lack of belief in God, the lack of family, the lack of love for their fathers, and everything to do with the hatred of their mothers and grandmothers. You must be born again. We are a spirit. And you must be born again of the Spirit of God. His nature is all love all the time. Here's another example of liberation for the blacks. This is from Fox. Man killed and wife wounded after they were pulled out of their vehicle and shot while celebrating Puerto Rican Day parade in Chicago, the same night of Juneteenth. So Puerto Rican Day parade is happening on the same night of Juneteenth celebration. And look what happened to the Puerto Ricans by the blacks. Watch this.
A grieving brother tonight working to make sense of violence now shattering the life of one of his own. The shooting happened here in the 3200 block of West Division around 9 p.m. Saturday. Here's podcast video of the horrific altercation. The brother who didn't want to be identified says his brother had rear-ended a parked car. After that, a group of up to 6 men inside of that car jumped out, started attacking them, and also throwing up gang signs.
Next thing you know, I hear gunshots. And then he takes off in this car. I come out of the car, I see my brother and my sister-in-law on the floor.
24-year-old Giovanni Arzuga was shot in the head, hip, and thigh. He died at St. Mary's Hospital. His wife, 23-year-old Yasmin Perez, was shot in the neck and remains in critical condition.
Liberation. Yeah, the blacks are liberated, all right. The freedom to kill, loot, steal, rob, murder, and get away with it. Because they're being let out of jail. They're serving no time for the most part. And the rest of the world sit back and in fear allow it to happen. And pretend it's because of someone else. 23 and 21, I think, those young people were shot and one killed so far, and another was fighting for her life. Liberated people. And they're going to blame this on white supremacy, even though there was not one white person involved. And there didn't seem to be a white person around, at least 50 miles away. And they're going to be blamed for something that these blacks have done and are doing. And what do the white people do? Nothing. They don't speak up. They don't say anything. And the white reporters, both conservatives and liberals, for the most part, conservative, they just present the news as though they present the truth. I understand that Satan is ruling the earth. That's why you need good to rule over evil, over Satan. It's not happening. May God have mercy upon America. I want my country back. In order for it to happen, you must return to the Father. And then fear will be taken away from you, and you will see the right action to take at the right time. Because everyone knows what's happening in America today has nothing to do with racism. Zero. No such thing as racism. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.